I'd like to welcome you to the Meeting the 3M's workshop. Today we're going to be covering money marketing and management, the 3M's, and then rolling the 3M's into our business plan outline. For those of you that have not quite finished your paperwork, just keep working and Karen will handle that for you. Okay, what we're going to be covering today is, first of all, will be the who, what, and why about the KSBDC, covering some information, even why you probably filled out some of the paperwork you've just filled out. Then we're going to get into the 3M's, money, marketing, and management. We'll actually take a break, about 2 minutes, just long enough to say we've taken one, after the first M, after money. And then after we get through the 3M's, we'll roll those into our business plan outline, where we'll cover the why, the what, and the how to write a business plan, spending most of the time, once we're in the business plan, really on how to write a business plan. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to speak up. Most likely I'll cover most of the questions that are normal in the 2 hours that we have together. Like I said, just keep filling out your paperwork. I'm going to start with who is the KSBDC to begin with. The KSBDC is what I would call a cooperative provided by 3 different agencies: the Small Business Administration, the Kansas Department of Commerce, and then our host institution, in this case, Wichita State University. In each of these, a SBDC center, a Small Business Development Center, is hosted by some local institution, and then the state helps, and then the SBA. So if you're in Texas or in Florida or Hawaii, wherever you're at, there is an SBDC close to you. In this case, the K stands for Kansas, KSBDC. Kansas Small Business Development Center has about 16 local centers. We have 8 regions, and in those 8 regions, we have several locations. In our case, we've just added a couple out of our region here in Wichita. So just to give you an idea, wherever you're at, if you move, or if you know someone that's working and struggling with an issue, send them to the Small Business Development Center in their neck of the woods. My sister recently was working on some things. She's in Charleston, South Carolina. I told her, go see the Small Business Development Center there. So there are centers out there for you. Now, how we can meet with you, like in this 3M workshop at no cost to you, happens to be because of the way we're funded. The SBA funds about 50% of what we do. The Kansas Department of Commerce funds about 50%, the other 25%, and then the host institution, in this case, Wichita State University. So we can meet with you as we are today at no cost to you, but it does cost you 2 things. It costs you your time. You're having to spend 2 hours plus the time to get here and go back, and information. You had to fill out a certain amount of information today in order to work with us. That will still hold true if you decide to pursue individual one-on-one consulting. It'll still cost you your time, and then it will still cost you some information. In our statement of understanding that you filled out today with the KSBDC, there is a piece in there that talks about how we have to be confidential with what we do with you. So we will hold to that. It's one of the things I think we get kind of crazy about, making sure that we're confidential with your information. But one of the things that we have to do once a year is do what we call our economic impact survey. So we need to find out your revenue, number of employees, and certain things that they'll ask every year. That's your price that you have to pay in order to work with us. We can't publicize that information individually. We can't talk about you. In fact, if you came to see me today, and then after you got through, you left and you ran into your banker, then later on I ran into your banker, and the banker says, "Hey, Alan, by the way, I just ran into Bob, and he was talking to me about so-and-so, and I've got a question for you." Unless Bob has given me express written permission, I can't even acknowledge that you're my client to the banker that you bank with. I tell people it's kind of like a hammer. How many times do you expect to walk into a room and see these nails up on a wall, and you go, "Where do these nails come from?" And the hammer says, "Hey, I had this great idea." And now you've got to pull the nails, you got to correct the issue, and now you've got an issue where you're not sure whenever the hammer's going to take off again. Well, obviously a hammer's not going to do that. Well, that's kind of like us. As a tool, the Small Business Development Center is here for you when you want us, when you want to access the Small Business Development Center. Otherwise, we just sit there waiting for you to access us. Who do we help? We help existing and startup businesses. Our existing businesses average between 40 to 45% of all of our clients. Our startup businesses, about 55 to 60%. So in most cases, most of the people in our 3M class are those that are startup businesses. But a lot of times when I meet with someone for the first time as an existing business, I suggest they come back in here and go through the 3Ms. The reason why is because what we cover in the 3Ms, that information, if we talk to you individually as a client, probably would take about three meetings with you. So about 6 weeks out, if we met once every 2 weeks or so, it takes about 6 weeks to go through the majority of the stuff in here. And even then, we probably wouldn't cover it all, even on a one-on-one consultation. And the problem is when we do that, 6 weeks from now, we hear things like, gee, I wished I'd have known that when we first started. So what we've learned is if we get you in here first, then I can get you the foundational information that you probably need in order to get started. So that's what we're here for. Every once in a while, there's someone here that I think probably knows everything I've told them, and so they're going, what did I do coming here? I've spent 2 hours of my time, I've wasted my time. I would debate that and say, no, think of it like going to the doctor. When you go to the doctor and the doctor says on your checkup says, wow, Alan, you check out great. I don't see any problems. And you're going, I just paid $125 to find out there are no problems. Gee, doc, can't you find some disease? I mean, would you really want to hear that? I don't think so, right? So in this case, if you're one of those that today after we get through, you go, I knew everything he said, then think of it like, well, it's a good foundational business checkup. I'm checking pretty good. If all we do is give you a little bit extra confidence to put a little bit of wind in your sails, then I would say it's a good thing. For the rest of us, hopefully today we're going to find a few things that we ought to do, maybe some things we ought not to do, and a little bit of different perspective as to how to approach the 3Ms. Okay? Our consultants. Each of our consultants have, I think, several things to offer you. Number one, each of them are involved in some small business. We are working through different business ventures just like you. So we can be elated, we can be sad, we can be frustrated, we can be mad. We run through a lot of the same challenges you do. In fact, I tell people every week I have to come back and listen to myself preach the 3Ms. A couple of weeks ago I had a major issue with something that we're working on, and I got to listen to myself preaching that in our management part, and I hear it. So I get to hear this over and over. What I find out is that these are foundational elements. And you know what? You can try every way you want to try to skirt them, get around them, jump over them, and they'll just stand right there in your face. So you got to deal with these things. They are what they are. And if we learn what they are and we work with them, then they can work in our favor. Each of our consultants, second thing that we do is that each of us have a minimum of a master's degree. I have an MBA in finance and marketing. So we have the training that we need in order to give you some of the real world assistance that you need. We also have a history working with in different businesses. And then finally, I think one of the things that probably helps us as much as anything is giving you a regional perspective. We're able to work with a variety of clients day in and day out. So what you don't get to do, we can do, and that is we get in the real world of a variety of businesses. So at any one moment, we can take the pulse of the business in our region, and we can see the trends of things happening. A couple of years ago, whenever our economy went crazy, I watched the 3Ms week in, week out, about 10 to 12 every week. We went to 22 to 24, 22 to 24. We went through that for a period of time, and then it just dwindled right back down to where we are today. So that's the kind of stuff. We can see those trends happening, and we watch them move up and down. That's something that you don't get to see necessarily working by yourself, for yourself, with yourself. So when you come to see us, in some cases, all we provide for you is just that safety net of that I'm kind of in the bell curve, I'm working within the realms of what I probably ought to be doing. We have some clients that come in every now and then, I call them our coffee crowd. And what they do is they come in, they tell us everything they're doing, and they're early in the morning. We're trying to catch anything. They said, do you see anything unusual? No, not really. And they're off again. That's all they want us for. If that's what you need us for, that lightweight, that's great. On the other hand, if you're going, I really need some heavy lifting, I need consulting on my cash flow, I need some market research, I've got problems with a client here and I've got this issue, oh, I'm moving, whatever it is, you bring them to us, we'll work with you through those. Other workshops available. I will refer to everything in your packet along the way. So I'll tell you which one to pull out first. If you keep the rest in place, then it'll make it pretty easy. First thing we need to cover is the alert. This is a newsletter that comes out once every 2 months. And the idea is to be able to give you some information from a regional perspective of things that are happening in your area, as well as things that are happening as far as seminars. So if you look on the left-hand side, about the 1/3 of the sheet, you'll see in the light blue-gray shaded area. These are events that are happening along throughout the 2 months, things that we think you should be aware of. You should be able to attend each of these at no cost to you at the first time. So you shouldn't have to join their organization. When you see this, what I would recommend you do is get your calendar, take a telephone and go sit down for about 5 minutes. If you wait until you have time to sit down and look at this, chances are then what you'll do is the next time you see this in the mail, you go, oh yeah, I remember getting that 2 months ago, because it's not normal for you to get. So when you see it, try to pause about 5 minutes right then if you can and go sit down and take a look at it. Now when you do, in these different events that you see going on throughout the 2 months, what I would recommend you do is with that calendar and the phone, pick up the phone, give someone a call, and if you see these, I think this one will work for me, and you're looking for 2 pieces of information. When you call these people and you're talking to them, what you're looking for is a minimum acceptable and a maximum desired. So I call someone and say, hey, Mrs. Jones, I see that you've got this event going on August the 4th. Can you tell me when it starts? It starts at 5:30. Okay, great. When is it over? It's over at 7. Okay, when is the main event, the speaker? Oh, they come in and they start at 6 and they get to telling you things. How many people generally attend? Well, early on, about 5:30, we'll start with about 10 people, and by the time the event starts at 6, we'll have about 20. Well, now you have some information. Based on that, what would be your minimum acceptable of contacts, either as allies or potential clients? Out of 10 early on that you can talk with during that networking period, would you be able to get 1/3 of those? So you say, okay, 3 is my minimum acceptable. Well, your maximum can't be more than 20. They already told you about 20 people's most that normally attend. When you get there that evening then, it's 5:25. You had a long day, your throat's scratchy, and you run inside. Nobody talks to you to begin with. You got your cup of coffee or your drink, and you're trying to network, and nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention, and you remember you got that thing at 7. You can cut and run. But if you've looked and done your minimum maximum, checked it again, then you realize my minimum was 3. You go in there, so maybe you hang around a few more minutes and you push yourself to try to talk and network. If you'll do that, what happens is you're holding yourself accountable to what you have defined as your success. If you don't, no one else is probably going to question you. So those are some of the little hints that I think make a big difference in trying to network and work through these. On the remaining 2/3 of the page, these are seminars that we're putting on here at the Small Business Development Center. Now, these are events that are happening every 2 months. We are working on increasing and adding some more events. So there's a chance that sometime in the near future, you may start getting one of these electronically once a month, okay? So we're working on some other programs to start increasing some of this. So if you see this electronically, you'll know that we've added some seminars in that 2-month period. Once every month, you'll see those. So it's something to see. When you look on the front and you don't see a date or a time, then check out on the back and you'll see that it's being offered multiple times. Our 3M workshop is a good example. This one's offered about every 6 or 7 business days, and we rotate it through as our first seminar. And then finally, more specific consulting is available. If you know that you want consulting now, at the end of the workshop, we'll refer you to the sheet that you need to fill out. If you don't know yet, but you want to think about it, we've got the sheet, you can fill it out later, okay? So you do not have to fill anything out today in order to work with someone if you're not ready. Any questions about the KSBDC? All right, we'll get started. The first M that we want to cover is money. So if you'll look in your packet on the right-hand side, count 3 sheets back. The first, second, and the third one. It should be stapled together. Oops, I messed up. Okay. The title should say Wichita State University, Kansas Small Business. Then below that you'll see Financing Your Business. The first heading says Personal Savings. Okay, so this is the sheet we'll be covering. Before we do, and obviously looking at our list, you can see a variety of resources for money. But before we cover this, what I found that seems to help with our clients is understanding what you look like or what you ought to look like when you go looking for money. Okay? So this is not in your packet. This is what I'd call Allenology here, a little bit of understanding as to what you probably ought to look like. What you're looking at is basically is a stack of 4. Okay, so 4 individual stacks, and each of these represents something that you're in control of, believe it or not. You see the lines in there. The way I look at this, kind of like chips. If I stack these up high enough, I can get to a level of good. Okay? Now, these stacks, who sees these are anyone that's looking to work with you or for you or to possibly invest with you or to fund you. So this can be a lender, or it could be someone that you're trying to talk into quitting their career to come to work with you or come to work for you. In each of these cases, these are the 4 stacks that they're looking at in some fashion before they have the comfort to want to engage you. The first one that we'll look at is personal savings. With our personal savings or personal investment, part of this is pretty straightforward. If you need $10,000, then if you can get 20 to 30% of that you have personally, that you're investing out of your own savings, so out of $10,000, $2,000 to $3,000, then you've pretty much gotten your first stack, your personal investment, to a level of good, okay, as a basic definition. But that one's not quite so simple sometimes. Most of us may not have 20 to 30% of whatever we need out of all that we need. So there's more than one way to get that personal investment. Another way is by collateral. So maybe you've amassed, let's say over the last 3 years, you've amassed some of the tools of your trade. Out of that $10,000 need, you've got $2,000 or $3,000 worth of tools. Maybe you paid $3,500 or $4,000 over the last 3 years. What's the current market value of those tools total? Is it about $2,000 to $3,000? Then possibly you can use that and show that you've got your skin in the game, that you've already contributed a portion of what your need is. Yeah.
Is that just the like cash money, or can it be in kind of what you do as far as equipment?
Exactly.
My business is, I teach therapeutic writing, and I'm doing my own stables. I'm an LLC now.
Okay.
So I have the land, I've got the horses, and ready to start getting clients. Is that part of this?
It can be. Now with that's a great question. So what she asked was, is my equipment and the things that I've collected over the last however many years, can that count as part of my personal investment? Absolutely. The rule here with that question, this is a perfect question, is what is I call it the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and I'm beholding you, I'm looking at you as an investor or as someone that may come to work with you or as a vendor, supplier. In each of these cases, I make that judgment, and when you show me that you've amassed $20,000 of riding stable equipment, horses, whatever it is, and you tell me you need $100,000, it's my decision as to whether or not I value that at $20,000. It's your job to get me to value it at $20,000. See what I mean? So it's a working relationship. You've got to do your part, and then I come up to it. If I don't value it at but $10,000, guess what? Then it's worth 10%. I can't get past 10%. You can't seem to push me past 10%. Then the tie goes to the one that's looking at you if you want to engage them. Okay. Another way, or another common way of getting our personal investment is equity in our house. Now, over the last few years, for some of us, that slipped because of what's happened in our marketplace. But under normal circumstances, what we see as one of the common ones is someone has been in their house for 10 or 15 years, and they go to the bank and they get a second mortgage for a portion of that equity, and they put that up. That works fine. You've got your personal investment. The challenge with that then is you've got to go over to the fourth one and you see your business model. Now you're kind of weighting down that business model with a debt that you personally owe. So it all comes into play, okay? You can't just borrow your way into it without looking at the fact that the business model is part of that also. And your business model is now paying you personally in order for you to personally pay your debt for the personal investment that you put in to begin with. So it all ties in, okay? All right, so that's personal investment. Our second stack is credit history, and then you see a score up beside it of 650. We believe that your credit history is as important as your score. In some cases, it may be more important. And you're like, well, Alan, they tie together. They do, but think of it this way. You can have 650 and someone else can have 650. But in both of these 650s, we have different issues. Maybe you're coming down to 650 after 2 or 3 hard knocks, and you've got some or incomplete issues. You've got some things that someone's telling you you haven't paid a bill. They're not reconciled. So they're sitting here unresolved. And over here we've got 650, but it's weak. It's not because of bad credit or issues. It's because they're growing it and they're brand new and they're just now to a point of 650. Well, once again, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. Which one would you prefer to work with if they're both sitting there at 650? Well, there's certain reasons you'd want someone that's seasoned and certain reasons that you'd want somebody without any issues. So the way we tell people is whenever you look at your credit history and your credit score, the good news is we're only looking at the last 3 years of your credit life. The bad news is we're looking at the last 3 years of your credit life. So for some of us, we don't realize where we're at. I tell people it's like blowing up a balloon and you tie it off and you hold it in your hand. As long as I'm paying attention to holding it in my hand, my balloon will stay right there. When I let go of it, what's it do? It's going to start sinking. Well, that's the same way with our credit. If you ignore your credit or you don't pay attention to it in any fashion, but you say, well, every bill I've paid, I've always paid on time, that's fine. But that may not necessarily mean credit. If you go and buy a vehicle and you pay cash for it, there's no credit extended, okay? I was surprised whenever I looked at my credit after several years, hadn't looked at it at all, and then I go looking at it one day and I find out my credit has sunk. The last 5 vehicles that I had purchased at that time I'd paid cash for. It was the way I do things based on where I'm at in sales and commission and things like that. Well, I was shocked to see how far my credit had sunk. But that was the bad news the last 3 years. The good news is it's only the last 3 years. So I started exercising my credit. I started paying attention to it, doing things to beef up my credit. If you're going to pay cash for something, then maybe you can put it out on 6 to 12 months, same as cash. There's some people that have programs depending on what you're buying, furniture, different things. Next time I bought a car, I put it out on time. I thought, well, I'll put the money in the bank and then I'll pay for it over time. If interest rates are low, that's one of the easiest ones to build our credit. But there's things like that you've got to look at. Those are part of your credit history. As I tell people, when you're looking at something like this, when your credit is almost nothing, I had a gentleman come in one time who was looking to buy a certain franchise. And I'll assume that his franchise model is good, okay? So it gets to a level of good. And he said, Alan, I'd like to find out what it is I need to do. And we were in what we call our assessment phase. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about you. I said, how much personal investment are you willing to put up? And he said, well, really not that much. And so I figure everyone's at a level of good until they're not, so it sinks down. And I said, well, tell me what your credit score, your credit history looks like. He said, it's really not that good. So I'm going, wow, 2 out of 4. And I said, okay, well, what kind of expertise do you have with this? And he said, I really don't have any. And I thought, okay. I said, tell you what. I said, get up and come around this side of the desk. And I said, I've got some banker shoes I want you to put on. And I said, now, put them on. Now take a look at yourself and tell me, would you be willing to fund someone like you? And he said, absolutely not. And I said, then what are you doing here? He said, I want to know what to do. And I said, are you serious? He said, yeah. Now he had a job. So I said, okay, well then go get a second job in the industry that you're wanting to purchase of this franchise. And I said, I don't care if you're the janitor. We've got people that have been janitors, CEOs that are janitors, started out as janitors or a mail clerk. I said, so start out there someplace. And I said, take 100% of that second job income and put it towards every one of your red X's, every issue that you've got unresolved on your credit. Start knocking those down. Every one of those. Every time you do, your credit's probably going to jump about close to 50 points. And I said, now once you've resolved your issues, now then take your money and start applying it towards your income, your savings. I said, if you'll do that, I can guarantee you in 3 years, you'll look vastly different than you do today. The reason why is because we've got a visual. We know what he looks like. Whenever you put this in these stacks and you understand what we're looking for, it makes it real easy. Now the cool thing is, I believe there's 2 foundational elements to this part of the M, and that is today is not forever, as much as painful as it is at times, and I know pain, I understand that. There are days that you feel like today lasts a week, this week lasts for a month or a year, that you're just dragging through. But today is not forever, and then no means not today, because when someone turns you down and you find out why they turned you down, then I can work with that. Or I know why you're telling me I can't get money right now because of the way I look. That's exactly right. We take a look at that. When we do that, based on the fact that today is not forever, we can work with that. We can do something about it. You are in charge of these 4 stacks. Okay? So if you're one of those that says this is what I look like, or I didn't have a clue that I really look like this, then that's the bad news. But the good news is you can change that. I had someone that back whenever I was working on one of my degrees, I was working at going to school at night, and a coworker of mine said, "God, Alan, if I was to get the degree you're going to get," he said, "I'll be 35 by the time. That's 5 years from now." And I said, "So in 5 years you'll be 35 if you attend school?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "How old will you be in 5 years if you don't attend school?" And he said, 35. I don't get it. I said, "Well, it looks like it doesn't matter. Unless you leave this earth, you're still going to be 35 in 5 years. I think I'd go to school. If I have a choice between adding that to my degree, to my belt, or not, why not do it?" Well, my point is, okay, so you don't qualify to go into business today based on some circumstance. Okay, what if it's going to take you 3 years to get there? Okay, add 3 years to your score of your age right now, and tell me and you figure out how old you'll be, and tell me in 3 years. Would you rather build your credit, get your business ready, do all the things to get there, or would you rather say, well, I can't because today's forever? That's my point about today not being forever. It's an attitude. If you think it's forever, then you might as well close up shop and leave. There's no reason in wasting your time. If you don't believe today's forever, then start doing something about it. Make the actions work. Okay. Now then, that brings us to the third one, expertise. Our expertise is a little more what I call cloudy. It's not quite as simple as getting a credit score. And the expertise, we're looking at things such as your time working as in a management position or in a business role, decision making. I've had people actually ask me, how many people have you fired? What were the conditions? I'm like, wow, that was a new one for me. But there's all different things that they want to understand. And once again, beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. Who's beholding you? Who's looking to decide to work with you? Those are the things that you've got to build up in your expertise. It's your resume, it's your certifications. If there are certain things in your business, in your industry that create expertise, that says, I am an expert at this, auto mechanics, there's certain expertise, IT world, various things that we have that we hold certain certifications. I told you early on that I have an MBA in marketing and finance. I used to not tell people. Then people would come up to me afterwards and say, so tell me, why are you teaching this? Why are you talking about this? What do you have? What do you know? And I realized if I didn't tell it, I wasn't doing one of the services. I wasn't giving you any value as to why I'm, I guess, some sort of an expert, at least enough that you're willing to sit for 2 hours. Because it does, like I said, although this is free, it costs you 2 things. And one of those is your time. You're sitting here right now. So what is your expertise? What are the things that you can do to create the value that you are the expert? Now, your expertise doesn't necessarily mean just you. In some cases, your expertise needs to be your team in order to get you to the level of expertise. I had a client come in one time, there was 2 of them, and they had discovered a really good business opportunity based on certain information. And I said, this is really good stuff. And we go to working with it and we start drawing up what they look like. And I said, you realize I said, you guys are telling me you have no expertise in this. You just have identified something. And they both said, yeah, we know that. In fact, we're looking for a so-and-so position right now. And I thought that was really wise of them to realize before they'd even started their business, they were building their business model, and they were about to start up looking for funding, and they had lead time things that they had to order. They were already looking for this person because they knew that their team was devoid of that expertise in that one part. So those are things that you can be looking for. If you don't have it and you're not going to get it all by yourself, then how do you bring in people to be part of your team to where you build that full look of expertise? Okay, so that's the third one. And then finally, the business model. Your business model, this is where I think the surprise is most of us up until now have believed the reason we're going to get funding on something is because of our business model. Now, you look over there and look at the business model, and you look at the other three and you realize they're all about the same. That's right. When it comes to your level of good, until you get those four at a level of good or something close to it, you probably won't get funding. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that may not necessarily be the case. Maybe you're like this, where you've got 10% of what you need, and then your credit score, your history is stronger, possibly your expertise, or your business model. It takes a variety of those in order to get you there. But the other thing is, I think part of the surprise when it comes to the world of money is some of us need a really big amount of money and we can't quite make it happen on our own. Or in my case, I'm working on a situation right now that'll cost $2.6 million. Well, I grew up thinking that if I didn't have the money to do something, I couldn't do it. If that was the case, our America would look vastly different than it does today, because there's a lot of businesses out there that were built on someone else's money. So today, realize you have something very valuable that someone with money has. You know what that is? That's an opportunity. You're identifying an opportunity that they either don't know or they don't want to have to personally make it happen. But they do have money and they need it working for them. They want it to earn more. If we keep the same amount of money, we put it under our mattress, in 10 years, it won't be worth what it is today. It will erode, right? So you bring something of value to those people. That's something that I never realized until just recently. So if you're needing, let's say in this case, $2.6 million, well then, okay, then at 10% of that's $260,000. That's a lot of cash. It's like, wow, and do you have that? Do you have 10%, 20%, 30%? No. How do you get it? Well, that's some of the secret in getting your personal investment. In purchasing a business, one of the ways we can get that 10% or that 20% is what they call the owner in carrying back. So if the owner will carry back 10 or 20% of what they're selling, then the bank in most cases will look at that as that skin in the game, as that personal investment. So if they'll carry back 20% and you need 20%, then out of that 2.6 million, and they're carrying back over 500,000, then all of a sudden there's skin in the game. Another way is to bring someone in. If you're, in the case I'm looking to purchase a business. I've asked the owner, would you be willing to keep up to 20% of the business? I like the person. We've worked very well together over the last few months. And he said, yeah, for you I would. Okay, I've got skin in the game. I've got my personal investment. So there's more than one way. The other way is to remember, if you go, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute when we look at each of these individually. An angel investor, you say, let's go back to the $100,000, and you're looking to get your $20,000 to $30,000 in order to go to the bank to get your $100,000, your total need of $100,000. And you're going, I don't have $20,000, Alan, so I guess I'm out. What if you go to 3 angel investors at $10,000 a piece? They're going to want to see what skin in the game you have. If you have $2,000 to $3,000, then you've got 20 to 30% of the $10,000 you need. So you go and you get 3 people to bring up $10,000 each, and now you've got your angel investors to get you to a level of 30% in order for you to get your public funding or your bank funding. So there's more than one way to look at this, okay? And I think once we start understanding that, to me it gets, like I said, I grew up thinking if I didn't have the money I couldn't do it, and I realized that's not the case. And remember, I do bring something of value, and that's the opportunity that I've discovered, that I'm an expert in, okay? So when you look at these 4 all together, then your business model is not the only thing. On the other hand, the business model has a stack of its own. So your business model still is important. So you still got to understand the business model as it is, where you're going to put it. So what works great on the East Coast may not necessarily work that great in the Midwest. What works great in the Midwest may not work on the East Coast, or vice versa on the West Coast. So wherever you're at, you've got to be able to work and understand your business model based on your demographics, the competition. That's one of the biggest ones that most people seem to ignore. Your supply, your demand, all those different things, the culture, things like that are a big part of making your business model work. It can't be just like the guy that was wanting to buy the franchise. Franchises, in a lot of cases, work very well. Why? Because they've been tested and tried in a lot of cases across the board. But then every once in a while you look at a franchise, all franchises aren't the same. Just because we've now stamped them as a franchise and we've got federal governance over them, they can be very regional, and if you pull them from one region to another region, they may flop. All you've got is a template in that case. And if you haven't done your job to understand if that business model will work there, then even a tried and true business model in one area may not work at all someplace else. So those are part of all of that putting together in the business model. And then finally, as you're looking at your business model, in some cases we look at 2 or 3 different things before we find maybe the one that we want to do. Remember that business model affects the other 3 stacks. Oh, I'm going to spend $10,000 for this. So I've got $2,000 to $3,000, so my stack looks good. What's my expertise? Well, I don't have that much. But I've got something else that I'm an expert at, and I need $100,000. All of a sudden, my $2,000 or $3,000, now then I don't have the right percentage. So it's a balancing act of all of that, trying to make it work. I realize it, but guess what? That's reality. That's what we're all going through. The best part of this is as soon as you understand what you look like or what you ought to look like, then you've got a target of what to start working on. And that's what today is about, is to helping you affect a change in whatever it is you want to do in order to get it done. Okay, now that we understand what we look like, we can go through these individually. We talked about personal savings a while ago, and it says your credit and your savings are your history. The thing that we want to try to help you with understanding on your personal investment is that now the way you treat your credit may be different than you ever have treated it before. Now, whenever you have an issue, I had a situation where I was ready to stop using one of my cellular phone companies, my phone. I called them and I said, I'm going to cancel my phone. And they said, that's great. You'll just need to pay your early termination fee. I said, but I've been with you for 3 years. And they said, well, you haven't finished your 2-year contract yet. And this was back whenever you could change your minutes, and it just kept changing the contract. Well, I kind of felt like I'd get, I understand business enough to realize I'd paid them enough that they'd made money. And so I said, well, I'm not going to pay you. They said, fine. So they went ahead and turned me over to collections. After 2 attempts over a year, they basically didn't collect it. It was $175. And after 2 years, I guess now that I was in my new job and needed a different phone and other coverage and all of that, this was several years ago, I realized that I could pay it. And they said, well, would you settle for something? Would you settle for $125? And for some reason, I guess because I'm going to talk about it later in my life, I decided to pay it. Now, the funny part is, during that period of time, I've got a red X. I've got an unresolved issue on my credit history, and it shows up, and it dings me. I was over 800 at the time, so I didn't really care. My score was fine. The problem with that, though, is during that time that I've got a red X, if I wanted to get funding for a business, say $50,000, and I go to the bank, guess what they're going to do? The same thing they do with you whenever when you're looking for a home loan or a car loan, and they say, I see you have this unresolved issue. Go get that resolved, then come back to see me. Bring back the paper proving it. Yeah, but my score's at 850. Is that the only thing? No, that's the credit score. There's the credit history. Both of those make that stack. So then you go resolve that. Now the funny thing is, how much do you think it cost? How much was my decision as to whether or not to take this stand? $175? And then how much it originally was? I would beg to differ. It was $50. Alan, that doesn't make sense. It's because it was the difference. Once you resolve it at $125, then I was willing to take a stand to interrupt the possibility of me going into business for $50. Because it was the difference. It wasn't the $175. I was willing to pay $125. So whenever you have these issues that you're so boldly willing to take a stand on, first of all, think of the difference. What would you settle for? And then realize then all I'm really talking about to interrupt the possibility of starting business is, in this case, $50. Okay, maybe that will help you to move forward. The second thing is, for $50,000 of funding in order to start your business, you be the judge. The guy can't seem to handle and resolve a $175 issue. Am I so quickly ready to give him $50,000 to start his business? So whenever you stand there ready to take a stand, remember those type of issues before you take the stand. The other part is don't play with your credit. We've had people literally about to close on a deal with a bank, and over the weekend they went and looked at cars. And they come back in and the bank says, we're not going to close the deal. And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, we see that your credit's been hit 5 times over the weekend looking for cars. And they're sitting there thinking you're just right at a level of good. You're marginal. And they're going, what if he buys a car? And you're going, oh, but I'm not. Now, you tell me, you're about to loan me some money, I'm marginal. Would you loan me money whenever you're not sure what I'll do? Because once I sign the deal and I get the money from you and I go buy a car, you can't stop it. And I create a different risk. So those are all part of it. So now when it comes to personal savings, how you behave can be a big deal. Okay? Now the second one then is family and friends. When it comes to family and friends, I think the biggest issue here is how you can approach someone in such a way that you're willing to approach them. Right now, most of us, the people I talk to, we don't have this big gray area. We fall real far to one side or the other. Oh, I'd ask anybody I know for something. Or I wouldn't dare ask my family or a friend for money for my business. And we tend to be polar. We go one way or the other. Well, for those of you that would ask anyone, great. Then I don't have to talk to you about this part because you'll talk to them anyway. The rest of us, I think it has to do with how we approach them in order to give us permission to go talk to them. Now I have a business partner that I'm working with in Africa, and he came to me wanting me to help him consult and work on this stuff over a period of time. So I did that. Then he came to me one day and he said, Alan, he said, I need this much money in order to get this thing done that we've been talking about. Would you happen to know anyone that would work, that you think that would be willing to fund this much money? Now I'll give them this for this. And so I'm looking at this from he didn't ask me for money. So I get to look at it from a perspective of, well, gee, I've already been looking at this thing and I think there's some opportunity here. So I said, well, I might take on this much for this. So we work out a deal. Well, guess what? You can do the same thing. You can call Uncle Tom. Hey, Uncle Tom, would you and Aunt Betty take a look? I've got a business opportunity that I'm thinking about getting involved in. Would you take a look at it? So maybe you've got it all written up. They read it. They talk about it. They think about it. And then after they do, then you could say, you saw what I need in my business plan or what I've written up. I need $5,000. Would you happen to know somebody that might be willing to get involved in this business opportunity? And they've consulted with you. They told you, well, yeah, I think it's a pretty good opportunity here. Well, they're looking at it. They can very easily decide whether or not they want to be involved. So that's one of the easiest ways to do it without even asking. That's what he did with me. The other way is if you ask them, then say, Uncle Tom and Aunt Betty, would you take a look at this? And once they do, then say, and they've talked with you, then say, based on what you see, would you and Aunt Betty take a look at this and see from a perspective of whether or not you would be willing to get involved? And oh, by the way, I still want to go fishing next Thursday. So I still want to be the nephew. I still want to be involved in your family. So there's the other way, more of a direct approach. But in either case, it's pretty simple. You get their opinion, what they think about it, and then if you come to terms that you both like it, then you can ask them in a way that you don't have to ask. If you do and they say yes, they want to work on it, then put it in writing. Why? That's only fair to them. What happens if something happens to you and you owe them $20,000 or $10,000, or you've done something, and then something happens to yourself, and then they're standing there with an issue? It's much better to put it in writing. There should never be a reason that we can't put it in writing. Okay, and that brings us up to grants. Grants are our most often requested item. When someone comes in to work with us, they ask us, well, the reason why I'm here, I'm trying to see if I can get this so-and-so grant or that grant. The problem with that is whenever you look at the paperwork, about a third of the way down, you'll see that it tells us that typically this free money that's so supposedly readily available isn't so readily available. In fact, most of it goes to nonprofit organizations. Now, does that mean that it can't impact you? No, it probably can. But you're going to be working probably with a nonprofit organization for that to affect you. In our case, we had a wired grant, and part of that was to help us fund the ability to work with certain businesses doing certain things. It was in the aerospace industry and composites. Well, they didn't get money from us, but that money helped fund strategic planning workshops, so we were able to work with them. So there's an example of it. So in your case, what I would tell you, I asked one of our professors, I said, he gets more grants than anyone else, and I said, tell me, what's the secret to your success? And he said, well, Alan, he said, basically, first of all, we look at what we're involved in at our department, and then we take a look at the grants that are available, and we basically see what we think closely matches. And out of those that closely match, then we'll apply for those. So on your paper, you'll see about a third of the way down, you start seeing, below that, you'll see several websites. So there's the beginning of your research if you think you want to get involved with a grant. And he said, now, we'll apply the first year, we'll get turned down, we'll find out why we got turned down, then we'll go back and reassess for the second year. If we think we still closely match, then we'll reapply the second year, we'll go through that process again, and sometime between the third and fourth year, we'll get the grant. Now, if you notice, he didn't say we get so many the first year, we're just luck out. He said we get turned down, he said sometime between the third and fourth year, they get the grant. So if you're willing to do that kind of work and understand whether or not you think you can do what it takes to match up, then it's probably worth it to you. Now, what I would point out to you that basically there's three things going on with a grant. Either they're wanting to work with you in a certain geographical area, so if you'll do that business over here, then there's a possibility that we'll get you a grant because we want you to work over here. Or it's what you do. If you'll do what you do, but if I can get you to do this certain thing, then there's a grant possibly available for you. Or it's who you are, based on your heritage or something about you, then if that's who you are, then there's possibilities. So there's basically three areas that the grant can work. Where you are, what you do, or who you are. Yes?
Okay, filling out the grant, I mean, do you have to have a business plan available to them, or so they can overview it and actually see what kind of things are actually in the business?
Okay, the question is, if you're filling out a grant, do you have to have a business plan available? That's up to that grant. It's just like me. If I was to have a grant today, and one of those grants was a $10,000 grant for 3M participants, and the other one is a $10,000 loan. At the end of today's class, if everyone that participates today wants to sign up, we've got a $10,000 loan, and here's the rate, and here's the terms. And everybody that wants to can sign up and Karen will write you a check, and you get your $10,000, right? The other one is the grant. Under the grant, it tells you if you do this, this, and this, then you can apply. Okay, so and all of you qualify if you want to apply. And after we get through applying, then I see that you all qualify. I confirm that, yes, they attended the class, they did their part, they filled out their paperwork, and then out of those I pick one. So it's a limited supply and tough competition. So it depends on the rules of the grant writer. And that's why all grants are not the same, and why we shouldn't look at them in that vein. The other part is to realize that even if you qualify, just like the professor that gets more grants than anyone else, even in his case, he says, if you do the math out of the 4 years, I'd be willing to bet he's about 10 to 15% of everything he applies for every year is he actually getting, if you add that up. So what I'm telling you is, I'm not being overly negative. I'm telling you that if you're willing to do the research first, and that's why we give you some information to start with, if you're willing to do the research and understand where or what or who I am are the parts, then you can probably start working your way towards them. Is it a guarantee? No, not at all. Okay. Now the other part of this, as we talked about when we first started, is what to do and what not ought to do at times. And this is one of those. When it comes to the world of grants, we're beyond the age of information. So you go searching for grants, you're going to be amazed and so impressed when people phone you or email you and tell you they've got information for you. And you're like, how do they know I'm looking? Well, we got great ways of finding those things out now on the internet. So when they call you, they'll do something like this. They'll talk to you and they'll say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I understand, and yeah, oh, tell me more about this. And you tell them, and then they say something like, and we had a client that this is exactly what they said. They said, I can guarantee you right now, based on what you just told me, we'll get you no grant beyond, or we'll get you a grant. I'll guarantee you we can get you a grant at less. See, how do you put it? I want to make sure I say this right. He said, I'll guarantee you that if I get you a grant, it will be at a minimum of $100,000. Now that's pretty impressive. She said, how much does it cost to work with you? And he said, $5,000. So $5,000 in, and you just guaranteed me a minimum of $100,000? How fast can I sign up? The problem was, what he said was, I'll guarantee you that if I get you a grant, it will be a minimum of $100,000. How do I guarantee that? I don't apply for anything less than $100,000. That's pretty simple. Now the problem is, when you go looking for money, whether it's in the world of grants or anything else, this is a very shark-infested area. They got, the show they call Shark Tank. They don't call it that just to be funny, because it's really that kind of way. And what happens is, you go looking, and then they find out who you are, people will call you. And you'll say, and it's so funny when people go, but they were so nice. Well, when's the last time you had a bully try to talk you out of money? That doesn't work very well, does it? It's usually when they're real nice. So that's the other thing, is whenever you go looking for grants, be very careful when people want to offer you help, because most likely they want to take your money and then they'll do the applications. They don't mind filling out the paperwork. They're just not going to guarantee you anything, okay? All right, then that brings us to banks. When it comes to banks, I think the thing that you need to understand is how to approach the bank is not the same as it probably is in the rest of our lives. Up until now, we've looked at a bank because we were looking to get funding for a house or a car. And in both of those cases, if you went looking for money, what did you do? Well, you brought a known commodity, a house or a car, the information for those to them, and you brought your credit, right? Those are the two main things. And then how much down? So if we look at the stack, we've got our personal investment. You'll have to put this much down. We've got our credit history. Expertise, well, I guess you know how to live in a car, you know how to drive a car, or live in a house, right? And then the business model is what? The Kelley Blue Book for the car. If I can resell it, you can see what I mean? It's a pretty standard situation. When it comes to with your business, though, it's not the same. So going to a bank and asking them to see if they'll fund you in your business and taking all that information the same way is a mistake. And the reason why is because banks, it says bank on the outside, but what they are on the inside is different. For you, depending on who you are and what you're doing, that bank may be interested in working with you or may not. It's kind of like going looking for clothing. Okay, so today you want to go get some running shoes and you go to Burlington Coat Factory. Are you going to get upset when they don't have Nikes? Right? I mean, they're a clothing store, they should have them, right? Or you go to the Nike store and you get upset because they don't have lingerie? Or you go to Victoria's Secret and you get upset because you can't get a coat? They're all part of the clothing industry, but they're vastly different, aren't they? That's kind of absurd and silly. Guess what? Banks are the very same way. They look the same on the outside, which is what's confusing. But when you go inside, you can even go to a series of the same bank and they'll be different. Why? Because the people on the inside and how they deal with you happens to have a lot to do with their experience. I had a gentleman sitting right over here, and we were doing the 3M one time, and we take a break after the first M. He walked up to me and he said, "You're exactly right, Alan." He said, "Right now, if you're in this industry, this one or this one," he said, "we don't want to have anything to do with you." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because everyone that we've loaned in these three industries, they failed. We don't know something about them. We can't get it right. Now, if you're in this industry, this one or this one, we love you. Now, we understand those industries. Come in, we can talk to you. We know what they're doing. We can tell them if it's working or if it's not working." So when it comes to banks, you got to figure that out. So when we go to the bank, we're looking for 4 pieces of information, and you're wanting 3 banks that fit your model, okay? So this is where you're doing the research. You're searching them out, okay? What you're looking for, number 1 is, do they have enough money that the amount that you need is not a substantial amount? "Buddy, can you loan me $1? Can you spare $1? "Well, I've got 20. "Yeah, I can spare you $1. "Buddy, can you spare $1? "I got $2 left and I got to pay my toll to get home." "I can't do it." You go to a bank and you need $100,000 and they got $120,000 in their loan portfolio left to loan out, you're a substantial amount. Or you need $2 million and they don't have but $3 million. All of a sudden they're going to put $2 million into one place. I know it sounds silly in a way to think I've got to ask that question, but if you don't ask it, the problem is you'll get people, once you apply, you'll get people telling you that you don't qualify and you won't understand why. We had a client working with someone for 12 years. And on his second meeting with them, in a business fashion, he said, if I didn't know any better, I'd think you didn't want me to be here. And he said, that's a good bet. Come to find out, they didn't have any money to loan. They were upside down temporarily. So if you don't ask that, you don't know. So that's the first one. The second one is, would your bank be willing to work with someone like me in this industry? They'll probably say, well, that depends on your credit score or your application. Then you can say, well, with all due respect, that's not what I asked. I ask you, would your bank work with someone like me in this industry? How does that work? What we're talking about there is, would you loan someone else in this industry? Well, it depends on, okay, that depends on that. What we're asking basically is, what is your definition of good? Oh, no problem. Yeah, in that industry, as long as you have 80%, you've got a credit score of 900, you've got 4,000 years of expertise, we don't have any problem loaning to you. Not in that industry, not at all. Or what are they telling you? I don't want to loan to anyone in that industry because I don't understand it and I want to guarantee my success. So that's what you're asking. So would they loan to someone like you? Once they say yes, I don't have a problem with that industry, then the third question is, how many SBA loan guarantees has your bank been a part of in the last 2 or 3 years? Now I had a client tell me one day, he said, well, Alan, he said, I can get that list. He said, I'll just do it that way. I said, okay, well then take that list and there's your first target, your suspects, then start talking to those banks, and then those are the ones that you can talk to and ask the first 2 questions. You don't have to ask the third one. I've had people tell me that they debate, they say, well, Alan, when you ask that question, you raise a level of awareness with that bank that's not necessary, and they may call you. And I said, well, the problem with that theory is if they work comfortably with the SBA, with loan guarantees, then why should I freak them out? They're comfortable doing that anyway. The thing is, you're going to start dancing with someone and you get to this dotted line, and when you get there, they say, okay, we don't dance anymore. And you're like, well, but I'm not quite to the door yet. And they say, well, you'll have to find another dance partner because we don't dance over there. And that's what will happen with you in some cases with some of these banks. You're working with them and all of a sudden they realize, well, we would like to do an SBA loan guarantee, and we'll cover that in just a second. And you're like, okay. And then they said, but we don't have any experience with that. Well, I don't want to be their guinea pig. And this all takes time. And at the same time, you're spinning the plate of trying to earn a living, and you're trying to get this business going. At the same time, you've got these other things you're putting together. And all of a sudden, you've got a timeout, and you've got to start all over. Okay? So that's the third one. Then after you get those 3, and you get a good answer like 10 to 12, 5 or 6, you're comfortable with how many SBA loan guarantees they do, then you can say, now that you can ask, what do you need, what information do you need from me in order for you to have a good loan? This is all about your banker. What do you need from me in order for you to have a good loan? Well, Alan, I need, and they give you the information. Now you've got your suspect. You've got 1. So you go and you get 3 of those, a minimum, and now you've got the banks you can work with. Right now, my business partner in Africa, when he had his first bank that we were working with, and I told him this, he got so mad at me. He said, okay, Alan, over the weekend, come Monday, I'll go look for 2 more banks. Are you happy? Will that make you happy? And I said, yes, that will make me happy. We are now about to start construction on our home, our subdivision. And guess which bank we're working with? Number 3. I think it's hilarious. Number 3. We're not working with number 1 or number 2 at all. The problem is, along the way, you got human intervention, you got people, and somebody's going to get weird on you. It's a divorce, it's, well, I don't know what it is, but somebody won't return your calls, it just gets weird. Well, if you go in with 3, then your chances of weirdness, even if one of them happens, you got 2 more that you're working with. And out of those 2, hopefully you can, because of what you're supposed to look like, and you've identified them properly, hopefully you'll take one of those 2 to the closing table. Okay? All right, and now that puts us to the SBA. If you look in your paperwork on the second page, you'll see a variety of SBA information. What I will not cover today is the specifics of all the different loan programs with the SBA. They're doing things on a regular basis to try to spur the economy on. It's a really cool deal, okay? I'm not an expert at it, and I suppose you probably aren't either. The one group that I'll bet that needs to know about this as much as anyone is who? The bank, the banking industry. Why? Because most of these are loan guarantees. The loan that is offered to you by a bank is being guaranteed by an SBA. So the SBA as an agency looks at the loan and decides whether or not to guarantee it with the bank. So what I'm encouraging you to do is go out there and find those banks that work with the SBA on a regular basis. Then what you have is someone that understands what they call the packaging of the loan program, the loan guarantee, and working with the SBA on a regular basis. You don't have to be that expert. You let the bank be that. Yes?
So what's the difference from SBA and BB?
And what?
The Better Business Bureau? What's the difference?
Okay, the Better Business Bureau is just someone that's judging whether or not a business has any complaints or has good accolades. The SBA is the Small Business Administration. That's a federal agency. That's their job is to help protect the small business as an economy and to spur it on, to keep that activity going. So they've got different things going at any one time to try to keep our economy going. When our economy started slowing down, then they brought out a $35,000 ARC. Forgot what the acronym stood for. It was a recovery act in order to bring certain businesses that had certain issues to bring them through that tough time. It was all about the economy, keeping it going. Think of it a lot like a catalyst. If you were to put STP, back when they used to put STP gas treatment in your car to keep your car going, that's what your SBA is. It's to keep the economic engine in the United States going. Okay. All right, now then, when you look at this list, you'll see at the top a Community Express Loan Program. Then in the middle you'll see SBA 7A, 504, a bunch of different programs that, like I said, I don't want to pay attention to at this time. We don't have the time to become an expert at it, and I'm telling you that if these work for you, that your banker is the one that will work with you on those. So what I'm telling you is there are two things that you should pay attention to. That's based on our results, and that is our number one number financially that people want out of the group of clients we're working with right now is about $35,000. Okay, so that's our most common number. So if that's you, then you've got three choices. One is the bank. That's always your number one choice. Number two and number three would be Community Express Loan Program or Micro Loan Program. The micro loan is at the bottom. You'll see the Small Business South Central Kansas Economic Development District, or what we call SCED, and 3 lines from the top. In that paragraph, you see Micro Loan Program up to $50,000. In the top of the page, you see Community Express Loan Program. The second line says $5,000 to $250,000. They have a $5,000 to $25,000 and a $25,000 to $50,000 loan program. And it's a Community Express loan. The difference between these two will help you decide based on what you look like, which way you should go. Under the Community Express loan at the top of the page, it's an unsecured note. So your collateral, your personal investment, the collateral that you can put together, means nothing to them because they're not going to be able to get to it. Okay? At the bottom of the page, under the microloan program, it's a secured note. So your personal investment stack or your collateral is extremely important to them. Okay? Now under both of these, your 4 stacks are still important. Okay, you still got to have some kind of a balance. But let's look at reality. One of you are out there going, wow, in my case, I've got this service industry or I've got this issue, and I don't, even with what I'm buying, most of my money is not going towards anything of any equipment. It's not going towards a collateralized item. I can't use it. I don't have anything to put up for it. So your collateral is weak. But you say, but you look at my credit score is pretty strong. I've had this and this, and I've got this credit built up pretty well. Well, the Community Express loan would be a very good choice for you. Why? Because it's an unsecured note. Now, your business model and your expertise, everything else still matters. But your number one, your focus would be on your credit score. Whereas with the microloan program, it's the security, your collateral that you're bringing up, and maybe your credit score is a little weaker. Then the microloan program for you may be a really good deal for you, okay? Your first choice, the bank. If I'm not well balanced, I'm a little off one way or the other, which way is it? Are you stronger with your credit? Community Express. I'm a little weaker with my credit. I'm stronger with my collateral. Then my microloan program may be the one for me. The reason why I cover both of those, like I said, is because our most common number within our client base right now is about $35,000. So you've got bank number one, then let the bank do the 7A, 504, whatever else is out there right now if they want to. Otherwise, I can go one of these two routes. Okay, now then and I want to point out one other thing on the third page. You see several economic development districts. At one time, they were geographical and you had to stay within that boundary. That's gone, okay? So you can work with any of these. You see RMI, Adams and Associates, SCED, and then you several on the next page. Whoever you want to go to, if you want to go to a development district, that's fine. You're not regionally or geographically tied to that anymore. Then you see a section called Startup Kansas. This is a program that acts or looks like a grant, but it's really a loan. And it's one of those things where it's a geographical thing. If you'll build your business over here, then they may have something for you. And it's what I call the cookie jar account. What they do is they go out there and get tax credits. They put money into the cookie jar. And then based on your loan approval someplace else, they may fund you. So you need $35,000. You meet with Startup Kansas. You talk to them with their Network Kansas program. And they tell you, yeah, we've got money. And if you'll build your business here, then we may match up to $15,000. So you go and you need $35,000, you get a $20,000 loan from the bank, and you come back and you show them your $20,000 loan approval, and then they'll fund the $15,000. Now, you still owe $35,000, so there's no magic there. But you only had to qualify for $20,000 in order to get your $35,000. But once again, it acted like a grant. It said if you'll do it over here. Most of the time it's rural initiative, but there may be some zip codes, even in your county where you're at now, if you're in metropolitan, that may qualify. So it's worth checking out depending on where you're at, okay? All right, now that brings us down to venture capital and angel investors. The most common issue that I see with people with venture capital is you look at, if you're looking at them as an alternative for you, two extremes. One is you look at their minimum and you spend time trying to talk them into your situation. They say, we will fund nothing less than $1 million, and yours is $100,000. So you go, this is easy. It's only 1/10. So this should be an easy yes for them. The problem is you don't qualify and you don't get it. At $1 million, that's the minimum amount of the human resource that they have available that they want to take in order to decide whether or not your business is worthy of their investment. So at $100,000, you're 10 times below that. You're not even close, but you think it's 10 times less of a hard answer for them. And you're right, it is, but it's an automatic no because you don't qualify. The fact is their human resource capital is only able to do so much a day, and they don't want to have anything to do with you. That company I was telling you about that was for sale. The fact is that there was another funding agency available, and we needed to get to a certain level. We had $20 million we had to purchase. This company was at $2.6 million. The big one fell out, and we've got this really cool company that we could buy. They didn't want anything to do with it. And and we will do it. You're tempted to do it. You'll chase that as far as you can to try to talk them into why your deal is good, and you're wasting your time. You don't qualify. So take it from me, when they have a size, it means something, okay? The second thing, and I had somebody tell me this a while back, and they said that, and this is something you need to get over when it comes to funding if you go into venture capital. The way I figure it, 20% of something's a whole lot more than 100% of nothing. And the way I look at this is if you're stuck on that, you thought this up, this is your baby, and you can't get over that you're going to lose the majority control or the majority interest in something, then you probably ought not even talk about venture capital. And I'm talking right now with some things where they're going, but Alan, and they just go on, and I'm like, you don't get it. And if you can't get past that, then don't waste your time there. because he who brings the money holds the gold. Without that gold, you can't do it. Well, then if you think that you can, go for it. If you can't, then you're going to have to realize their money means something, okay? It's a big deal. That leaves us with angel investors. What's an angel investor? Angel investor looks a lot like a venture capitalist, but there's a big difference. They do not have a shingle out. They don't advertise. They're not on any list. You tell me, oh, but I've got this list right now, and there's this group of angel investors, and they're on this funding list. They're not angel investors anymore. If they're on a list, they're now venture capitalists. Their size, their minimum, maybe they don't have a minimum, but they're venture capitalists. Why do I know that? Because when they go on a list, guess what they do? Very often, the majority of the time, they say no. Venture capitalists say no 95 to 99 times out of 100. An angel investor's not doing that. Why? Because they're not on a list. They're still being hit up, but that's because of the network. Okay? Once they go on a list, they're saying it 9 to 9.5 times out of 10, they're saying no. So that's the first thing. So how do I find my angel investor? You got a network to find them. The second thing is that they are someone that's been mega successful as an entrepreneur, or they have money. You have to have money to be an angel investor. The most important one, just a second, I'll get you. The most important thing about an angel investor, and this is very important to you because you'll waste a lot of time doing this if you don't figure this out. The angel investor that will fund you has a passion for whatever it is you're doing, or they're an expert at what you're doing. If they're not an expert at what you're doing, they don't have the passion, you're wasting your time. But Alan, okay, but Alan me all you want to. This is about time. You got so many plates you're trying to spin, right? And if you try talking them into becoming passionate, that's fine, go right ahead. Or if you try to talk them into becoming an expert in something they're not an expert in, go right ahead. You're probably going to waste your time. You need to find the angel investors that have a passion for what your industry is, what you're doing, or they're an expert at it, okay? And then finally, this is someone that still has that entrepreneurial spirit, but they don't want to do what you're doing. When you find them, then you've got someone that you make and work with. Yeah.
Is that like cold calling and just kind of scouting people down that might be interested in what you're doing, or
How do you do that? That is the secret to everyone. That's a lot of work. That is.
That would go to like pediatricians or physical therapists, or you just
For what your business is? So, yeah, see, then that kind of makes sense. Now, can you find someone that knows some of those people? There are a variety of ways. It is a tough business with what you're asking. What it boils down to in all of these, what we're basically talking about is it takes real tenacity. I'll give you an example like what you're talking about. This guy tells this person, says, hey, I'm trying to do this deal. Here's my opportunity. And he says, I think you should go see Mr. ABC. And he says, okay, well, here's his phone number. Gives him the phone number, gives him a call, leaves a message. Calls again, leaves a message. Does this for 8 weeks without a reply. After 8 weeks, he runs back into the guy. He says, hey, did you talk to Mr. ABC? No, he hasn't returned my phone call yet. I still think that's who you need to go talk to. So he tries again and again. On the third week, he gets hold of the person live. They agree to have lunch together. They get together over lunch, and the gentleman decides to fund his opportunity for $25 million. So my question to you isn't whether or not you'll get your $25 million. And since you're here, or you're watching right now, I'll be willing to bet you'll make the first phone call because I've inspired you that much. The question is, will you make the second phone call when someone hasn't called you back? What will you say to someone after 8 weeks? We're talking almost 2 months now of your life that someone couldn't even have the audacity to return the phone call to you. What would you say to them? See, this is really not that complicated. It's just real hard. It's gut-wrenching. Now, if you understand what you ought to look like and you get this right first, then what I'm going to tell you is I can make your road a lot more productive by understanding what you should look like to where whenever everyone you talk to, you already know this. And you know this is about them, not about you. You have the opportunity they're looking for, but it's about them and their decision. And whenever you put it in the right order and you understand that, then you know what you do that almost no one else does? You understand something, and they go, wow, and they start engaging. They take a step forward. Why? Because you're a pleasure to talk to. Almost everyone, it's all about them. It's like the guy I told you about a while ago, and I sat there and I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, are you serious? And he said, yeah. So if this is you, do something about it, right? Any questions on the first M? All right, we're officially in break. You got 2 minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our next M is marketing. So if you look in your packet on the right-hand side, we need your last 2 sheets, or if you've got all 5 of them in there, your 4th and 5th one. In this one, when it comes to marketing, the problem I found with challenge with people is they just don't seem to understand either why they should do some market research or why they should understand the marketing in order to decide what to do, what avenue to take in marketing. So what I've told people is an opportunity. I go back and think, well, there's got to be another way to try to explain this to where you connect and understand the marketing. So what I'm going to do is tell you about an opportunity, and what I want you to do is to nod real loud or shake your hand real fast. Do something to tell me yes or no. It's a good opportunity or a bad opportunity. Okay? So what we have is a hot dog stand. Now this hot dog stand is on the university campus, and it's for sale. If we purchase it, we have to pay $100 to buy the hot dog stand. Now the hot dog stand happens to be in such a way that if we use it, the only way we can use it is at their events. They have 10 events a year that we can be a part of. Each event costs $25. We have to pay for all 10 up front, so that's $250. So our upfront cost, if we decide to get into business for the first year, is $100 for the hot dog stand and $250 for the different events. Now, before you decide, I've done a little bit of research, so I can give you a little bit of information for you to tell me if you think this is a reasonable opportunity. The first, then, is we have the hot dog's average price at $2. The average cost for the hot dog looks like about $1. That's the hot dog, the bun, the condiments, etc. Okay? So my question to you then is, based on that information, and we'll say the events are hot dog conducive to eating, okay? So the question then is, would you be willing to get into an opportunity like this? Say these 10 events are where you can use, this is like a second job, okay? So it wouldn't interfere with your job. So does this sound like a good opportunity? Okay, before you have to do all the math in your head, we'll say $2 minus $1 gives us $1 gross margin. We take $1 gross margin into $350, and we get how many hot dogs we need to sell this year to break even, right? So 1 into 350, that's 350. 10 events, that means we need to be able to sell at least 35 hot dogs per event, and we'll end up breaking even. So does that sound like a pretty reasonable opportunity? Boy, okay, I got a nodded yes, a nodded yes. I got some people still on the fence. What are you riding the fence for? What do you need? You need more information? Sounds all right. Any questions from anyone? Yeah. How many competitors are there? Well, there's Oscar Mayer. You know, they got that weenie mobile, so they're there. They're really big into stuff like this. So we got one competitor.
What was last year's results, or what are the last several years' results?
Of what?
Of the sales of the hot dogs.
I don't have that data.
You don't know who's attending.
How many?
What's the attendance like?
Oh, the attendance. The attendance is 10 per event. 10 people per event.
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it? No. What about the people that were? Now we got no's. I'm sorry, I misread it. There's 1,000 people per event. So is that better? That's better. The events are 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Now we got no's again. Make up your mind. Obviously, I'm kind of yanking your chain. What I'm doing is showing you that as we reveal a little bit more information to the market, your opportunity changes, or it can. Okay? Now your idea did it? So guess what? We're going to certify today that you've got a good idea. It's certified, okay? That's not your challenge. The challenge is your good idea a good opportunity? And based on what's happening in your market, hence the name market or marketing, once you understand what's happening inside your market, then it makes a difference. Now here's what's interesting. I chose a hot dog as my example. Look at that list and tell me, do you know what your customer looks like, where they're at, how many are serving them, and who else is serving them and how many are out there, and tell me how well you know your product or your service. Do you know it as well as you understand a hot dog? As I was talking about the hot dog, I see people shaking and I see reactions almost instantly. I didn't see too many blank stares. Why? Because you understand a hot dog. It's pretty simple. Almost every one of you probably either have consumed hot dogs or you've seen someone else do it. You get it. That's what you need to get about your product or your service, okay? That's what we're talking about. That's the first step in marketing, is understanding that. Once you understand that a little bit, then you can move forward. Now the problem with that is for some of you, you don't know where to go. So this first part of this list is what you've got on that first sheet, and that is understanding the conduits of information. You can go to the library, then there's public libraries, the college, WSU, a small business development center. We've got a library of our own. So there's plenty of places to go to begin with. So maybe we go to the library and we ask them, we're looking for some information about hot dogs. We want to know what's the trend in eating in outdoor events. And maybe we find out that 30% at this point, it was 50, but now it's down to 30%, in all outdoor events, people would eat a hot dog. And the average hot dog consumed seems to be about 1.5. Now we go back and let's say the events are from 11:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon, 2:30 to 6, and we've got 1,000 people. Well, we can figure this up pretty quick, can't we? 1,000 people times 30%, 300 times 1.5, 450 hot dogs. We've got one competitor, Oscar Mayer. Okay, each event we can pretty well bet that 450 hot dogs will be consumed. Now, at that kind of information, would you be willing to pay $350 for the year in order for the opportunity to be able to sell a minimum of 35 hot dogs to break even? I need to get 1/10 of the market. That decision makes it pretty easy for me to go, that's a pretty easy bet. Now then, with that kind of information, armed with that, let's see, I got to decide, what am I going to start investing in? I'm going to put TV ads out there because those are really pretty. I can make my hot dog look really good on TV, right? Now, would that make sense? I got no's immediately. What about radio? We know these people are going to be at an event, so TV and radio, I may reach them, but they're not going to hear it while they're out there, are they? They're going to hear it or see it some other time. And while they're there at the event, they're not going to hear it. That's number one. Number two, I know how many are going to be there, 1,000. Okay, I'm going to pay for TV to reach 500,000 people across the state of Kansas. Does that make sense? Do I want to pay that kind of price for the fact that 499,000 won't be at that event? See, once you start understanding your market, then some of the marketing opportunities make sense as to whether or not you should get involved in them at all. But before, when you don't understand your market, then when someone comes to you and says, hey, I've got this really good deal, it's half price. It's 10% on the dollar. Wow, I want to pay 10% of the real cost, of the regular cost for TV advertising that probably isn't that effective for what I need anyway, but I'm saving 90%. I saw a special recently that said, saving yourself into bankruptcy. And I thought, wow, that's a good point with businesses. Understand your market, then your marketing makes sense. So the first sheet, libraries, then we've got the internet, we've got Google, we've got Yahoo, MSN, Bing. We've got other search engines that are now coming on board in order to try to provide more and more information for us quicker, more intelligently, more effective. So there's great ways to get information now to understand more about your market. And you look over then professional associations, well, you've got one, the Small Business Development Center. You can come to the KSBDC, and the information doesn't cost you anything but some time. You've got to be a client of ours. So we can get you information. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks. Right now, minimum of 2. And then market research. You can do your own market research or pay for it with another market research group. I've had clients come in, I said, well, have you tried surveying your clients? Can I do that? I said, I don't know, can you? I mean, I've got people that literally will go to their competition and they'll click all day long just to get the numbers, to understand it. You can do that if you want to. You've got permission to do those things. So there's more than one way to do it. The second sheet says selected market research resources. This is probably one of the most important or valuable resources in your packet that's the least used. For some reason, people take this home and they never crack it open again. If you'll see in here, we've sectionalized this into general business information. We've got financial, demographic information, and directories. Some of you are seriously lacking in demographic information. You don't know where you should be. You're not sure yet. Or you just now found out that you're going to need some financial assistance. Whatever it is, there's a great resource here. What I'm going to challenge you to do, since I realize now it's one of our least used resources, is for about 30 seconds or maybe 20, figure out how much time would you give yourself to look through this information and just check it out over the next 4 weeks. 10 minutes a week? 20? An hour? How much time would you give looking into this to see if there's any information here of value to you? After all, this is the entire world of market. Your market research, your marketing, okay? However much that is, if you'll write that at the top, I would challenge you to hold yourself accountable, just to kind of get your foot in the water, just to see whether or not you're wanting to do a deep dive on any of this, okay? All right, any questions on market? Yes?
The industry that I work in, I wanted to go visit another local center that does the same service, and my executive director said, oh, no, you can't go do that. And I was wondering why.
You can't do what? I'm not sure I'm under.
Visit another therapeutic writing center just to, see how they run their business.
And who said you couldn't?
My executive director
Of what?
of the nonprofit I work for.
Well, if that's the way they want you to do business, I guess you can't. Then you can't.
I'm
Would
an
that?
independent contractor, so I didn't. She said, "Oh no, you can't." Other centers don't like visitors.
Oh.
I don't know if that was more that she was trying to keep me from working in more than one place, or if there's something I don't know.
I don't know. That sounds like a personal issue. Personally, the more you know about your competition or others, I think, first of all, that's a very good idea. Excuse me. Second of all, if they're not your competition, I think it's one of the greatest ways for mentoring. We should start valuing our mentors much more. And I have a lot of clients that I talk with that they're going into something for the first time, and we suggest going to Oklahoma City. We try to look at the market, to how close is it to another market, and choosing certain markets to go there and pick some and try talking to them. A lot of people love to talk about what they do, especially if it's not going to impact their business. So I think it'd be a great idea. It's excellent, because what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, first of all, here's the things we did wrong. Don't do this. And then they're going to tell you, here's what we did for success. And those are great ways. Others, just looking at your competition, see what they do. And we'll cover that in just a second. Okay, the final M is management. If you'll look in your packet now on the right-hand side, you should have 2 sheets left. If you'll pull those out, we'll cover those 2 right quick. When it comes to management, what I tell people is what I call my John Wayneism. If you're going to ride, you might as well make sure your saddle's tight. How many of you have ever ridden a horse with a saddle that wasn't tight? Anybody? No? In this group? Oh, okay, we got some hands. When did it happen to you?
Just being in a hurry.
No, I mean, when did you discover the saddle wasn't tight?
Oh, when I'm going sideways.
Okay, but what was the horse doing?
Probably not much. We're probably just walking. I've had it happen a couple of times. It's usually because I get in a hurry and I forget to do the last check.
Because you get in a hurry and you forget to do the last check. That's interesting. What I found is most of the time you won't find out right off, because the saddle's not tight, it's just loose. Well, if I put it on, it's not loose. I didn't do that. I'm not that dumb. Okay? So I get on and I get to riding, and as soon as I get to loping and it's turn left or right, the saddle, and it's a great sinking feeling whenever you're running and you turn and that saddle just keeps going that direction. What do you do about it? Absolutely nothing. Because you can't say, okay, stop, time out, let's do over. It just happens. Guess what? Your business is the same way. You're in your business and you didn't do something, you didn't check something, or you took my word for it, you didn't check it out, you didn't confirm something, and all of a sudden you've got to stop. Somebody comes and tells you, you cannot do business, or you get a legal issue or whatever, and all of a sudden things stop. You don't get to say time out, do over. It just happens. So that's why I tell people, if you're gonna ride, make sure your saddle's tight. And it's just like she said when she got in a hurry. I thought that was interesting. So our first sheet says small business license and permits. This is your best first sheet. Whenever you need your to-do list, this is your first to-do list. On this one, you see a title, a location, and then a phone number, and some information and a phone number or a website. Each of you, I guess, you probably tend to be lean to the left or the right when it comes to information. You're one of those that you want to read, you want to study, you want to understand the situation. So we got some websites up here, kansas.gov, irs.gov, wichita.gov, yourlocaltown.gov. So some of you need to study that. Others of you going, good grief, Alan, I've read all I can. I don't want to read another thing. I want to talk to someone. Well, then in that case, start at the top and go down through here and you look at your numbers, your phone numbers. Pick up the phone and call. Or you're going to go in person. If you're doing this over the phone, once you've read your information or you didn't read it and you don't want to read it and you're ready to talk to someone, what I'm going to suggest you do as you do this, pick up get on your computer and pull up your internet email. Get ready, and as you're talking to them and you're asking whatever your questions are, and you get your answer, and I say, oh, Bob, what's your email address? Oh, it's bob@iknowwhatimtalkingabout.gov. Okay, Bob, I'm going to send you an email right quick. Could you cut and paste that ordinance that you just quoted from and send it back to me? And usually while you're on the phone, you can do this. We were working with the Economic Development Director recently, and we were talking about a certain issue, and they got to the state person, and they told them, here's what the deal is. And she said, could you? And she did the same thing. Before we got off the phone, we had a 3-page document printed and in our hands to look at. They're just talking about one part of it, but we've got the whole thing. We can read through the entire issue or the program or the regulation and understand it, and then I can put it in my file getting ready. I'm wanting to make sure my saddle's tight. That's part of getting that stuff done, okay? If you'll do that, chances are you won't be interrupted like that. We had a restaurant recently, well, I say recently, gosh, it's been over a year ago now, where a city official went out to see them, and they asked to see their bar manager. Come to find out, through a couple of questions, they found out that they were breaking an alcohol ordinance. Now, I don't know if you know, but alcohol, we get kind of weird. We get kind of funny about that. Guess what? It was such a bad thing, what they were doing, that the bar manager could have gone to jail for it. How would you like to be the employee going to jail because you're doing what your boss tells you to do? Now, the funny part of this is when they talk about this and ask them some questions, they said, well, we're not originally from this state. The state we're from, and what's wrong with that before we even finish the sentence? The state we're from, that's not the way it is. Well, you're not in that state, okay? Whatever state or city you're in, you need to check their ordinances, their issues, right? Because they may get funny, but guess what? It's their funny, not yours. And you don't want to be the one screwed up, and all of a sudden. Now, the funny part of this is they could have gone to jail, and the restaurant could have been closed down until they corrected it. Can you imagine the publicity? Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't you like to be the one in jail? Now, it's one of the rare times that the city allowed them to solve it. It was really kind of a weird issue, and they did, but they didn't have to. Yeah.
Kansas.gov, you'll find on there, like we're in Sedgwick County. That will tell whether Sedgwick County, I know Wichita is pretty obvious who's in Wichita, but what if you're not in any city, you're just in Sedgwick County?
Okay, I'm not sure I'm getting the question. Well, then you basically, it doesn't matter where you're at, you've got somebody governing you, either a state level, a county, or a city. If you don't have a city, then you go to the county level, whatever their issues are.
So we know, would that be on the Kansas.gov site?
Pardon me?
Kansas.gov site then?
Is that on there?
Should that be on there, or we have to go to Sedgwick County site? I'm trying to ask where would we find this license?
The licensing?
If there is any license.
Well, that would just get with your county. If you're not inside the city, then you get with the county. I know it sounds weird. Then that means that in a lot of cases, if you're not in a city, you have no license.
Right.
That's right. It sounds awkward, but that's the way it is. So it just, no matter where you're at, you check the state and the county, and if there's nothing, we're always going to have a state and a county. And we got that, but we may not have a city. That's right. And it sounds kind of weird, but it really isn't. So that's why we have some people that put their businesses outside city limits. But you may not always be outside city limits. Okay? All right. Now that leaves us with the last one then is building your team of professionals. Under this one, this list probably is not a secret to you. You see on here accountant, attorney, banker, real estate agent, insurance agent, and others. These aren't the surprise to you. The surprise is probably how to find the right team. Jeffrey Timmons wrote a book called Venture Creation. And in that book, he profiled mega successful entrepreneurs. In doing so, one of the things he found was the mega successful entrepreneur tends to surround himself or herself with a very good team of professionals. So the mega successful entrepreneur doesn't do it alone. So if you're out there, what I'm going to encourage you to do is forget trying to be the Lone Ranger here, doing this by yourself. Surrounding yourself with a team is probably the best thing you can do. Second of all is understanding what qualifies as a good team. Most of us think a title, either in Yellow Pages or Google, works real good. The problem with that is that can get you in a lot of trouble, okay? What I would suggest you do is when you're looking for your team of professionals, get with people that you hold in high regard as a business professional and ask them. If you're looking for an accountant, then what I would say is not only are you looking for someone that's knowledgeable, that one's the duh, okay? You're also looking for someone that's accessible, reliable, and dependable, okay? Why? Because you can get someone that's very knowledgeable, but they're not very accessible, and you need information. I had a guy come in and said, did you get hold of your CPA? I've been trying for 3 weeks, hadn't got hold of him yet. I said, wow, it doesn't sound like it's too good of a teammate. What do you know about them? They're not too accessible. Another guy is working with a banker. The first time he goes in after his partner leaves him, says we had $35,000 in bills. $25,000 of it he owed the bank. Or he had $35,000 in cash. He owed the bank $25,000, and he owed another $25,000. So whatever it was, he didn't have enough money. So he goes to the bank, talks to them about it before he does anything, and they say, not a problem. Get all your bills taken care of, and then come back to see us. As he was doing that, he gets a demand letter from the bank demanding their loan. And I said, well, it doesn't sound like too good of a teammate. He said, what do you know about it? I said, their information's not very reliable, is it? He told you one thing, and as soon as his boss got hold of him, he told you something else, didn't he? So my point is, what you're looking for are people that you can rely on their information, you can access them for information, you can depend on their information, and you can get knowledgeable information. Too many times we try to let one of these qualifiers work. We need to get that. Jeffrey Timmons told us the mega successful entrepreneur surrounds himself with a very good team of professionals. I want to be mega successful. So I'm going to try to surround myself with the right kind, okay? The quality. All right, now then the last two things you see on there are cash flow and sales. If you didn't get the dollar gross margin a while ago, the 350 or the 35 per event to break even, or in your case, you can't seem to get your hot dogology for your product down, you don't understand, it's a little convoluted, it's a little entangled, you need to get it, okay? If you don't get it, you will get it sooner or later. I had a client that came in and they said they were so successful they had to buy another business in order to continue to expand. I spent 20 hours working on their cash flow. It's pretty big, pretty convoluted. When I got through, I said, something's wrong with my numbers. She said, why? And I said, well, and you look on the gross margin level, 11 out of 12 months, they're red. Something's wrong with that. I can't be right. We go looking deeper. I was right. And I said, something's wrong with this. Come to find out, they're buying hot dogs for $5. They're putting $2 of labor and other stuff. So that's $7 of cost, and they're selling them for $1. I said, you know, you can't make that up in volume. You can't sell more of those and make that work for you. It doesn't work that way. Their raw material cost was higher than their finished goods price. I said, have you contacted this line? And the attitude was, well, and I said, have you tried? Well, yeah, a couple of months ago I tried. And I said, have you talked to this one? Well, they're not calling me back. And I look at this one line, I go, well, I can think of 28,000 reasons every month they're not calling you. I said, I would leave my office right now and go down there and camp out. They've got to go to the bathroom, they've got to leave sometime today. Why? They didn't understand their cash flow. It was a surprise to them. And once they did, they didn't want to embarrass themselves. Well, 6 months later, it was much more embarrassing when the bank calls their note and they go bankrupt. Now remember, they started out telling me they were so successful that they had to buy another business in order to continue to expand. I bet you they'd love to go back to when they were so successful. You're working through this process. Today is not forever. As much as there's times I have cried feeling like today's forever. I promise you, I understand the pain of wanting to hurry up and get started, okay? I get it, I really do. But this is about putting this all together and making sense, okay? Which is where we're going to roll this now into our business plan. What's left in your packet, if you look on the left-hand side, you've got 3 sheets. The third one says how business loans are evaluated. That's a great homework sheet, okay? So just write on there, read first. That's after we talk about the business plan, it's a great warm-up, okay? The first one I'll cover, just set that on the top of your packet. I'll cover that as soon as we're finished, okay? So that leaves you with 1 sheet. And it says why, at the top of it, it's in a square box, and it says why write a business plan, okay? All right, I told you at the beginning that we were going to cover business plans. We were going to talk about the why, the what, and the how. The why do we write a business plan? It's in order to either discover or to turn our good idea into a good opportunity. I think it's first of all to discover, the natural discovery of if this is a good opportunity. Second of all then, it's trying to turn it, tweak it into a good opportunity. That's the finesse of what we discover. If you look on there, we talk about first and foremost, it's for use, to develop and implement your ideas into reality. Then it's to provide a strategic plan of action, and then to develop your guidelines for your operation. So if you noticed in that list, there's nothing about money. So if you're one of those that said, well, I don't need to do the business plan, I don't need money. This is about you. You know the best place to screw up about your business? On paper, before you've done anything else. It's also the greatest place to discover the flaws in your business before you've done something, okay? This is the place to discover all this. It's a discovery process. Then it's a tweaking. Once it passes your approval, then your business plan is for your audience. Now it's for your stakeholders, your investors, or your lenders. Now it's for those that are that you're wanting to get them to engage you, okay? Now, what is your business plan? Your business plan is your outline, whether that's a score outline, SBA outline, the KSBDC, the SBDC, or even if you want to go get Business Plan or Business Plan Pro or some other service, that's fine. There is not a shortcut. I don't care how much money you spend, there's not a shortcut to your business plan being your business plan. You can pay me $5,000. What will I do? I'll say, can you tell me who are the principals and what are their proportions of ownership? And you'll tell me and I'll write it down. Then I'll say, how is your business structured? You'll tell me and I'll write it down. Get the picture? I'll do the same thing. If you want to tell me, that's fine. I'll take the $5,000. I'll take the time to ask you the questions and write them down. If you give someone else your business plan to write and they write it, guess what? It's no longer your business plan. At some point, it becomes someone else's. This is about you. So the challenge really isn't the what, it's the how. That's what I found. I have people tell me, I twist wrenches for a living. I don't write. I don't have an English major. They got all these different reasons why they don't want to write, okay? Now, so if you'll stick with me for a few minutes, what I'm going to do is help you into the weird world of creativity. They tell us in the United States our creativity peaks at the age of 6 years old. Think about it. What's the most creative thing you did today? Was it whether to go with solid black socks or polka dot black? Did I go with stripes or solid? It's all those really hard questions. How am I going to do my hair today? I mean, we really stretch our creativity, don't we? Think about it. When's the last time you've written a song, written a poem, written a story, told something? All of these things that are part of creativity, we just don't do much anymore. We go home tonight, what are we going to do? Turn on the TV, turn on the radio, sit back and relax. We want to veg out. We want to turn, as much as we were stressed today for our creativity, we even de-stress even more. But you're going to do what? You're going to grab your business plan and you're going to come in here and it's a marathon. I got to get this done before Monday. And so you jump right into it and you press. It's like picking up 200 pounds of weights, and I'm going to get ready for my class reunion. So I'm going to do four hours today. Tomorrow I'm probably going to do 6, okay? Because Friday I got to be ready. The problem with that is I'm going to incur so much pain. Probably I couldn't get through, and tomorrow I couldn't do anything. So I'm really going to screw up. And that's what you're doing to your creativity if you press this the wrong way. And that's why people don't finish the business plan. And that's why they tell us, I don't want to do it, I can't do it. They give us all those excuses. So instead, if you'll just understand creativity, there's a way to write your business plan that I'll guarantee you zero pain. What do you do? First of all, establish a creative zone. This is where and when you'll be creative. 30 minutes to an hour at a time, so we go in and we get out, okay? We find a place. We take our what, we take our business plan outline and a pad of paper. This is a pad of paper. This laptop is not a pad of paper. For those of you that go, well, I'm not going to write longhand, go right ahead and type. And as you do, and you start reading the first sentence, or you don't finish the first sentence before you start rereading and correcting and perfecting it, think of me. Because every time you do that, you leave the creative zone and you're now down the hall in the editorial room, okay? This is about creativity. You know what they tell a singer, a professional singer to do if they're going to sing a song that they didn't write before they sing it? They tell them to get their pen out, get a pad of paper, take the lyrics and write them in longhand. Now, why would you tell me to do that? They say it's the closest you'll come to possibly feeling what the person that wrote the song felt like. It's the closest we can get you to. And if I can get you to feel it, then you may sing it, right? You start becoming part of it. We're talking about a creative process. As weird as this sounds, this is what it's like. Because I'm trying to get you over your hurdle. And if I get you over your hurdle, you'll get through this, okay? So here's what we do. I'm going to give you a few secrets to write down on your business plan outline, okay? Number one, at the executive summary, write last. That's your first secret to your executive summary. It's the last thing you'll write. You're going to go see a movie this weekend you've never heard of, never seen. Would you please summarize it for me before you start? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Would you summarize the book you've never read? Okay? You can't summarize what you're about to discover until you discover it. Second thing, 1 to 1.5 pages. That's your limit to your executive summary. Now, some of you probably have a business card with you, and your business card looks, you know, one of those dinky ones. My business cards are this big, okay? You know why? Because I'm much more important. You probably didn't know that, did you? Now, think of what President Obama's business card looks like. It's like 2 foot by 3 foot. It's really big. Does that make any sense? Yeah, I mean, some of you are like, what? It doesn't make any sense, does it? Your executive summary is the same way. I don't care how important it is, summarize it. Why? We are not in the age of information, we're in the age of over-information. We've got too much information, right? Your business plan is not, contrary to your popular belief, your business plan is not going to be a bestseller, okay? Most of you can't get your significant other to read it. Why do you think others are going to pick this up and want to read it? Okay? And it better not be a novel. It needs to get to the point. 5 to 10 pages, okay? All right, on this second thing I want you to write, circle description of business on the top of the right-hand side, circle description of business and write start here. This is where you start. Now, what do you write? Well, I'm going to give you some training wheels here, some guidelines. At the top of the page, I want you to write this down. Write avoid, then put a colon mark, ignorance, and arrogance. Think of this like a bar ditch. That's your left and right bar ditch. I don't want in the bar ditch. Okay? Now then, what are we, okay, I know where not to go, Alan. Where do I go? Then you can write this down. Target, understanding, or centerline understanding. Your target is understanding. And when you don't do enough, you're in the bar ditch of ignorance. When you boast something that you don't prove up, you're in the bar ditch of arrogance. Okay? All right, now then the next step is looking at each of these topics under description of business. Every topic either applies and you know the answer, it applies and you don't know the answer, or it does not apply. The only thing you have to write down in your creative zone is what applies and you know the answer. That's all I'm asking you to do. If you will stick to that rule, I will guarantee you zero pain in the creative zone. Zero pain. Now I'm going to show you. So Alan's going to write his. I start with description of business. So first thing I write on my page, description of business. I skip a line, it says company ownership. Company ownership. Put a line underneath it. Skip a line. First is who are the principals and what are the proportions of ownership. I'm going to interview myself as if I'm a reporter talking to me, getting this information down. And my rule is to write in complete sentences, okay? So who are the principals and what are the proportions of ownership? Alan Badgley is the principal owner of Alan Badgley's Antiques at 100%. Now some of you out there going, AB-100. Okay, come on. The problem with that is whenever you shortcut this thing, eventually you will be at the editorial room and you will be typing description of business, ding, company ownership, ding, AB-100. Oh, that's not a sentence. You don't even know what it means now. What do? You hop up and you run down the creative zone and you create it again. But while you're in the creative zone, if you'll just write it out in complete sentences, it's real easy. Now, I could have said Alan Badgley's Antiques is owned by Alan Badgley at 100%. I could say it several different ways, but when I'm writing it longhand, it really doesn't seem to matter. I just write, and it's complete, and it did the job. How is the business structured? Oh, Uncle Tom told me about an LLS, a sub P, hold on, let me call Uncle Tom right quick. No, that applies, but I don't know the answer. So I circle it. I'll even write on my piece of paper, see Uncle Tom. Skip a couple of lines. So I'll take on my page, my business plan, and I'll circle it. Put a little question mark beside it. I keep going. What is the current status or projected opening? Alan Badgley's Antiques will open Labor Day weekend 2011. For existing businesses, that's an NA, I don't know. That's non-applicable, doesn't matter. When you do that through the entire business plan, it makes sense, okay? What will happen is your business plan will start taking shape, and then when you leave, since you've incurred no pain, you'll pick up the phone, eventually you'll call Uncle Tom. Hey, Uncle Tom, was that an LLP, a sub S? What'd you say? Oh, yeah, okay. Alan, I don't know what this is. Can I come see you? Can we talk? Yeah. And when you get back to the creative zone, you're right. Guess what happens? Because you've incurred no pain, you can't wait to get back. Because it's working, it's taking shape. Instead of you sitting there on line 2 and you anguishing over and over, it makes sense. Everything works out for you, right? That's what this is about. Now, let me show you how ignorance and arrogance work. The banker gets my business plan. I remember Alan, we chatted. And he gets down there reading through this, and he gets down to market analysis. It comes to competitive analysis. It says Alan Badgley's Antiques has no competitors. He's like, wow, I'm not sure. And he looks over at his meter, and the meter moves, and he says, I'm not sure if that's arrogance or ignorance. Competitive edge. Alan, duh. He looks over there, the meter's pegged. He says, I'm pretty sure I know which one that is. Now, I'm going to give you something you probably weren't aware of. Your business plan fails when it stops succeeding. As soon as whoever's reading it, incurs enough ignorance or arrogance, they put it down. They don't have to defend their answer. They don't have to give you an answer. They don't have to give it a 65, a 75, or a 95. All they got to do is set it down. And guess what? You don't get the phone call. That's how simple it is, okay? So I'm going to tell you a couple more hints. First, market analysis. For some reason, you guys, we're in the age of information or over-information, and you guys don't want to study your competition. You sure don't want to write about it. This is the easiest place to do what it is that will help you discover your competitive advantage, and yet we don't do it. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing is making sure that your sales forecast seems to make sense. How do we do that? We top-down predict and we bottom-up match. We will sell this many, okay? How many hours does it take to get one? How many hours, and you add it up. How many team members? When you add it up, it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, it won't to anyone else, okay? Your marketing plan, your promotional strategy, ignorance abounds here. We're going to be on TV, radio, newspaper, bulletin boards, or billboards, and trade events. And we're going to spend $500 a month. Really? Now, with that kind of information, how confident are you that the rest of the information makes sense? that I know what I'm talking about, and yet we do it. When you do then human resources, your expertise, remember, it's a stack of its own. For some reason we get there and we see experience, 2 years. Huh? 2 years of what? 2 years? We get real closed mouth right there. Complete that. And then finally, your financial plan and your cash flow need to match your business plan. Well, Alan, that's kind of a duh. Yeah, it is to begin with. The problem is eventually you start running between the editorial room and the creative zone. And what happens? What you started with in your business plan and you corrected in your cash flow, at some point they don't talk to each other. And when they don't, and you don't double check, then you claim one thing in your business plan and your cash flow says something else. They got to talk back and forth. They need to be harmonious. So at some point, do the brain flush, go back and read this for the first time. People that write stuff usually aren't their own editors for a reason, okay? All right, now then, wrapping up, executive summaries, what we write last. Avoid ignorance and arrogance at all costs. Description of business is where you start. Write a paragraph, or write like you're the reporter, and just answer the questions. And then just, if you don't know anything else, just put each section in a paragraph. Okay? That's simple. It really is. When you do that, this is your business plan. Then whether or not you want anybody else to read it, you've gone through something that most people won't do, and that's putting their own possible business in practice on paper first. All right, any questions? All right, then before you leave today, I need you to do one thing for sure and possibly two. Number one, in order to leave, I need you to fill out the training evaluation form. That's your ticket out of here. That's what we report to show that where we can pay for what we've done today. Then second of all, if you know that you want to meet with someone else, with a client, with a consultant, then that sheet that I told you to set aside says initial assessment for startup businesses. This is your sheet that you will fill out if you know you want to work with a consultant. If you're not sure, you don't have to fill it out today. If you know you want to, but you don't have all your information, you don't have to fill it out today. Only if you're ready, you can fill it out. What will it do for you? It'll speed that process up to where you can get with a consultant that much faster, okay? That's your sheet you need to fill out. If you take it with you, you can turn it in later, okay? That's the only one that you've got a choice on. The training evaluation form, that's the one we need you to leave. So when you get through, if you'll just leave it on the back, that back table that you leave, that's all we need, okay? And I'll hang around for a few minutes. If you have any questions, I can help you with. Thank you.